there, and welcome to another episode of Women with Good Chat. I'm here with my good buddy Pam.
Good afternoon, Amanda.
You look stunning as always.
Well, there you go. It's a bright sunny day.
You look summery.
I do not. Summery dress.
You got the beautiful.
I've got the highlights. Look at it's the beach highlights.
Yes, very beachy. You've got a bit of a tan.
Yep. Well, given we've had exactly 4 days of sun since February, it's been pretty good.
You're Barbie. I'm a beach Barbie magnet for the sunshine. I love it.
What we're saying.
Okay, so we are actually going to do part 3 of our series on parenting older children, and today we're going to discuss sharing about issues that we have parenting older children, and just having open and honest discussions, being honest, I guess, about struggles and also good things, but just sort of being able to share. And are people able to do that at this time in their life? What do you think?
Well, I think this topic really brings us back to one of the main premises of the show, which is that, you know, women of our age actually, when we get together as a group, have the wisdom, have the knowledge, and have the experience to, you know, creatively come up with solutions to face what we're doing now, right? We don't always need experts. We don't always need, you know, the professional help. There's a real source of wisdom in the group of women we have around us if we get together and if we discuss things. And I think this is a hard one. And I think it's a hard one. You know, when we first started talking about this, I think it's a hard one because I think when you talk about issues with your adult children, there's necessarily a privacy question which comes up. Mm-hmm. There's necessarily a reticence, you know, to expose them, talk about them. It was very different than when they were younger. You know, your kids was younger, it's biting everybody at daycare. There wasn't the same reticence, I think, about talking about that, talking about the struggles. I think now it gets harder at this time of life.
Interesting, because I actually have a different viewpoint on that.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, I totally get where you're coming from.
Yep.
I think for me, and I know, I don't know if we discussed this in our last episode, or I know you and I have talked about this, but I believe that it's almost come full circle. And that when you first have kids and you're measuring who's walking, who's talking, who's social, who isn't, who's getting beaten up in the schoolyard, who's doing the beating up, like all these kind of things, you know, you always want to put a good face on everything, I think. That was my experience.
Okay.
And that, you know, well, Johnny's already walking. I'm going to say Susie's walking too, because I don't want to look like she's behind.
Okay.
So
there's that. Yeah.
Yeah. So then now, you know, most of our kids have, you know, finished some form of schooling and are probably working, or doing more and more schooling, whatever the case may be. Some may still be at home, some not. And I do think that the sharing of things is tricky right now, which is kind of what you were saying.
Yeah, maybe for a different reason than reason than what you're suggesting. Yeah. But I think what I have seen when this topic comes up and when people are given an opportunity to discuss this, what I see is an extreme appetite for this kind of discussion. I think a lot of people feel, for the reasons we've talked about before, right? Which is many of us don't have a role model for what our relationships with our children look like at this point in our life, or certainly a model for what we want them to look like, right? And so I think there is a real appetite once you open that up and once you show yourself to be vulnerable for people to come forward and talk about it, right? What are they worried about with their kids, and what is their role, our role in it at this point in time?
Yeah, for sure, because COVID certainly changed a lot of things. And so I know my daughter graduated right in COVID, March or April of 2020. and there was no graduation ceremony. Everything was shut down. Everybody just went home and locked themselves in their rooms. And it was a very sad time, and it really affected a lot of people, and the effects are still going forward.
Yes.
So I think the fact that we have community over this huge thing that happened worldwide, it's a little more, I hate to say it this way, but a little more acceptable to say, hey, again, Johnny or Susie isn't doing well, and this is why.
Right. And I agree with that. And I agree with all of the employment implications that came out of that, the situation of people, young people working online, working from home, necessarily not getting the social exposure, which we did, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways has caused a lot of reverberations. And as you say, my son was in the same situation as your daughter. Just about all of the people we know, there's a few whose kids are older and it didn't hit, but most of our kids got hit in some way, be it at the end of their school, at the beginning of their school, their first few years when they would have been in the workplace making those connections. So yes, and I think that concern about whether our kids are out there making the connections they should, having the social life they should, that's a huge concern for a lot of parents, and it's great to be able to share that, right, without judgment about why that is or anything else.
Absolutely. And I think that and as you know, we've done with our circle of friends, is really sort of everybody tossing something out, and then other people can identify with it and feel more comfortable. So then the sharing gets larger because you don't feel judged.
Exactly.
And that's the great thing about having that community of friends and girlfriends.
And I think it's really important that when you get that feedback, it also really helps you keep things really in perspective. Because when everything's just inside you, you've got these worries. It's a real tendency to think it's just me, it's just what our family's going through, it's just what, one or two people's family going through. That is really rarely the case, right? Just like when our kids were younger, it was rare that, your kid was the only one struggling with reading, right? That wasn't the case. But when people aren't willing to talk about it, obviously, and you think that's the case, right? And in the worry that comes around it, sometimes the overreaction that can come around that, it's just not healthy for anybody. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for your kids. So I think that gift of sharing, which is kind of what it is a real gift both to give and a real gift to receive when people are willing to be honest about it and trust you enough that you're not going to judge. Yeah. Because it takes trust.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really important to have that in your life where you can be open and be able to express yourself openly and honestly, and then hopefully receive some input, some advice, even a hug.
Right, absolutely. Because
that helps too.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all someone can do. Yeah. There's not answers to a lot of this stuff, right? But the knowing you're not going through it alone, knowing somebody else is aware of it and thinking about it, I think is really important. So, to kind of end our series, I think it's a good place to end in saying that we should have the faith in ourselves. We should have the faith in the women around us that we can answer the really difficult questions which come up with parenting adult children. But we've got to get out there, we've got to be willing to be vulnerable, and we've got to be kind and generous to each other when someone else is being vulnerable.
And I think that's really, really important. I know that I have experienced sometimes wanting to share and be open about my situation, whatever it is, and have not always received the reaction that I wanted to.
Yes.
And this does actually pertain specifically to kids.
Okay.
Our kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
I think it's just so important to be non-judgmental. And you never know what is around the corner, whether it's something to do with us or our kids.
Absolutely.
So be open, be there for your friends.
Absolutely.
Be supportive.
Yeah.
And any last thoughts?
No, I think that just about does it.
I
think it's
so
a
awesome.
Good note to end on. It's an important note to end on.
Yeah, no, definitely. Get out there and give somebody a hug.
Absolutely.
And an ear.
And that's right. Absolutely.
All right, this is a great series. We really can't wait for you guys to watch it, and we will see you next time on
Women with Good Chat.
Chat Then.